You're listening to the Broken Meeple Show, a podcast that speaks passionately about board games for the benefit of those who play them. My name's Luke Hector, best known for the Broken Meeple YouTube channel, and I'm an everyday gamer just like you. And I'll be talking about reviews, top 10s, and just about anything that connects me to board games, as long as I have a tea or coffee in hand, that is. So grab a cup, relax, and enjoy. And remember, it's only a game. Hi everybody, Luke Hector here for another podcast, 107. Yes, nice sunny day outside and I'm cooped up in the dark room recording the podcast, but to be honest, it's also pretty nippy around, so it's not like I want to go outside and play in a field of daisies or something. Generally, things are alright. Work has actually been fairly steady lately, actually, not too stressful, which is to say, compared to last year, actually a good thing, but things with work are certainly going to develop, I think, in the next month. Ask me the question again early March as to whether things are still going all right. So, by that point, I'll have a pretty definitive answer if it is or not. But, I'm keeping my options open. Otherwise, the blog, blog doing fine. For the blog, otherwise, personal life, there's some considerations family-wise that I'm having to kind of deal with, but nothing like too major or anything. It's just like, I'm stuck down here in the south. The family is kind of scattered around the rest of the UK, so whenever I hear that there's issues somewhere, whether someone's ill or something like that, then I'm kind of powerless to do much about it, because I can't just pack up and go back and still do everything I need to do here. So I have to kind of listen and obviously communicate with them, but then I can't really do anything to action it, and that kind of drives me up the wall, because one of the things that kind of irks me, or one thing that does get some of the anxiety going now and again, is that feeling of being powerless to do something about it. So, something bad happens, but you can't do anything about it until a while. I start going, I need to do something. I can't just sit and do nothing, and this is kind of one of those things. But nothing major, so don't worry. But otherwise, just to say that, personal-wise, generally fine. But, some hiccups here and there. The channel itself, though, not too bad, actually. It's off to a pretty decent start for January. There's been some good engagement on some other videos, since the last one. First off, just a little apology for Station to Station review. That was a little bit of a cock-up by me, because what I did was I recorded the review, gave it, I think, about a 6 out of 10, Station to Station from Alley Cat Games. This is a pick up and deliver train game. And I got a rule wrong from the book, which was quite a critical rule to get wrong. So much so that I had to put an amendment to the review to clarify the actual point. The problem is I tried to bolt it onto I tried to do it as a separate video at first, but then that would have just been confusing. People would have only accessed one video and stuff. So then I had to take the whole thing down, bolt it together, re-upload it, probably killed any viewership that the video had. And even then, I'm still like, that is really annoying. And this is, why publishers do need to make certain that their rule books are concrete and easy to read, and things like this can't be glossed over, So, it's partially me, but I also blame the publisher partially on this as well. But suffice to say, if you watch the Station to Station review, pay attention to the addendum at the end of the video. Again, I also noticed that for some reason, probably by a keystroke or something I pressed while I was editing, the volume of the music on the addendum went up to stupidly loud levels. So the Station to Station review was obviously a bit of a disaster, in my opinion, a little bit of a disaster. The main thing I'll say about Station to Station, it's a decent game, 7 out of 10 I'd give it now as a good. I'd give it a seal of endorsement. I've even passed that seal of endorsement on to Alley Cat Games, apologizing for the crappiness of the review. But the game itself is good. We'll watch the rest of the review. Just the bit I make about the end game trigger isn't right. The addendum clarifies what the rule was, because originally I said there was a variable endgame timer, which meant that you didn't necessarily get equal turns, and that felt a little bit of a downer. You actually do get equal turns. It is purposely set up that way. I just got a rule wrong about how the last phase was set up, and once you get that correct, you now have equal turns, which removes that problem entirely. So, you can ignore that section of the review if you want, and just assume that that's not a valid point, and know that I gave it a 7 out of 10. So yeah, sorry about that. That is not going to be something I intend to repeat. After that, though, I tried to do a bunch of speed reviews to catch up with the games that I never got done in 24, and that wasn't even all of them, but there was a bunch of little small ones that I felt didn't warrant their own videos, and so I've got a bunch of them done in there. The other one that I've done is the Beyond the Base Game is back with the Forest Shuffle expansion, so Alpine and Woodland, the little tiny boxes you can get Forest Shuffle. Originally, I gave Forest Shuffle a 6. It was above average. I like a lot of stuff in it, but the unbalanced scoring and the fact that the scoring takes a million years to do was a bit of a put-off. So I wanted to see if these expansions would elevate the game, and they do. I think if you put both expansions in the game, the balancing is a lot better. But it is still a monumental task to score the game, which is annoying. You do have an app that you can get off the official, you can get it on the Google Play Store and iOS, I believe. But it scans the cards, it scans the trees, and then it works out the points. It's not a foolproof system, but it's better than trying to do it by hand. But yeah, that does elevate the game a bit. And then recently, a speed review for Undergrove, the Wingspan designer Elizabeth Hargrave's sort of hyped game that came out afterwards, which has had pretty much nobody talk about it ever since it came out. So that was an interesting one to sort of get dug into, and it's like, why is that one like not talked about? And so by all means, check out my thoughts on there. But at least with Undergrove done, that now catches me up with every main review I need to do. There is nothing that... There are games on my shelf of shame that I want to play, but they're not review copies. So the main two I've got is... Oh no, actually, there is one I do need to do. A Beyond the Base Game video for Ancient Knowledge expansion, but I'll get round to that when I can. It's a pretty small expansion. Maybe I'll even just do it as a podcasting. I don't know, but we'll see. I'll get round to that eventually. But the main two games that I want to get played more are the Video Game Champion, which is downstairs. I have played that. I just need to play it some more before I can review it. And Kraftwerken, the new reprint of Kraftwerken from Arcane Wonders. So both of those need to get more plays. I haven't even played Kraftwerken yet. It's on my shelf for shame. But those two I would like to give speed reviews at some stage. But they are not important ones in the sense that they're not review copies. These are ones I spent my own money on. So I'll get to those when I get to those. Honestly, there isn't actually a review copy in my stash at the moment because January and February just doesn't really have anything on that front. But I have pre-ordered, thanks to a viewer who's done it via the Stonemaier Champions, Finspan. The problem is that the UK is going to get Finspan probably a good month after everybody else in the world does. So you're going to see some reviews come out for Finspan before I get round to it. I will no doubt give it the beans and give it a quick review once I'm, I'll really give it the beans and make certain that it doesn't take forever to do a review when it comes out. But you're going to have to bear with the UK in that respect. So I'm already seeing people I'm seeing a lot of mixed opinions. I mean, the IGN Dice Tower are basically giving it to 9 out of 10s galore, saying it's amazing. Other people have said it's amazing, but then there are other people who have said it's boring, it's bland, it's nowhere near as good as Wingspan. So I'm definitely seeing a mixture. I would definitely maybe just curb your hype expectations for this. I mean, this is Stonemaier. They haven't put out a brilliant game since Wingspan originally. So, you gotta be a little bit cautious with them. But I am interested to try Finspan, despite its stupid name and concept. But whether it's going to match, I don't think it will be as good as Wingspan. I don't think that's physically possible, especially from what I'm hearing about it. Being a lot simpler, being a lot more basic, being also pretty much 100% multiplayer solitaire. That's not a good sign. So there are signs that point to that. All right, this won't be as good as Wingspan, but will it be a good game in its own right? We'll have to see. But yeah, I will definitely be getting round to that as a review, a proper full review probably for that one, not a speed review. But that's me in my own time. I don't get review copies for Stonemaier anymore, so I basically have to buy that one out of my own pocket. Other than that, not really anything on the game front. It is the quiet period of the year. It is quarter 1, quarter 2, both very small quarters, so this is kind of a catch up. But that does mean I am getting on with the top 50. So the top 50 of my games has already got underway. I'm literally trying to render the first 10 as we speak in the other room on my PC. The problem is that Premiere Pro is not the flawless piece of software, I must admit, but it struggles with some motion graphics, and I tried a different motion graphic for the lower thirds, which if you don't know editing terminology, lower thirds are basically the banners that appear at the bottom of the screen to basically say what this is. So number 50, for instance, number 50 automobiles or something. But the problem is that it seems, depending on the motion graphic and how well it's been designed, it could be too big, too technical, too many elements, and when you try to render it, the whole thing just freezes up at those points. And if it freezes up too much, it just janks and clogs up your memory on your PC, and you just can't do it. And I've got 64 gig of RAM on that PC and a 4070 Super graphics card. I do not have a slouch for a PC. Oh yeah, and a 12900K Intel CPU. That is not a slouch in there. That is a good productivity PC in there. So the fact that it keeps clogging up is a software problem. But I'm hopeful that it's going to do it now, because I gave it a massive update. I cleared a bunch of crap off the startup sequence for my PC, which I think was clogging up a lot of the memory. Like there was stuff that was trying to start that couldn't start, and when you have that, you do need to do this for your PCs, guys. As a good tip, go to Task Manager, go to Startup Processes, and disable anything that you don't need to start up when your PC starts, because trust me, that stuff is sucking up memory. But I set it going, and it looked like it was doing better. I won't know if it succeeded until I finish doing this and go back around to check. But the worst case scenario, I'm going to have to go back to it and take out those lower thirds and replace it with different ones that are much more basic. It's annoying, but needs must. But once that is done, I will release the first 10 in the next day or so. So Monday or Tuesday this week, you will get the first 10 of the top 50. And then pretty much apart from playing those other 2 games and maybe that Beyond the Base Game video, I'm going to be focused entirely on the top 50. So hopefully throughout the rest of February, you will get the rest of the top 50. So that, the list is already done. The first 10 is already recorded. I just now need to record and edit. Well, the first 10 is rendering. I just now need to record and edit the other 40. So that is underway. So thanks for your patience. That is all coming. Not much else to say. Yep. So let's get on with what we're talking about here. This is basically going to be an episode where I just give a bunch of first impressions, because I realized that over HandyCon and a couple of other meetups before, I've played a few new games lately. So I figured, let's just have one big podcast, because I honestly run out of discussion topics to talk about. So by all means, ideas are plenty. Patreons, if you're on the Patreon, maybe I'll stick a post up and get some more ideas from you lot. But what I need to do is, what I've done is played a bunch of games, and so I want to give a bunch of first impressions. So I'll basically just go through them one by one. But first off, I just want to talk about something that's kind of interesting here, and this is an update from Fantasy Flight. So Fantasy Flight Games do a lot of the LCGs. They've done Lord of the Rings, Arkham Horror, Marvel Champions, and all 3 of those are in my collection. Granted, I haven't played Lord of the Rings and Arkham Horror in ages, and Marvel Champions even hasn't been played in a while. Problem is with deck building is that deck building is the bit I don't enjoy from these games. I don't enjoy putting a deck together. I just like to copy somebody else's idea and then attempt to pilot it myself. The problem is that the deck construction bit takes time, and starter decks are nowhere near as fun as actually having a customized deck to pilot. So that is a problem, but it's also just lack of time. I don't have time to play the LCGs as much, but I still enjoy these 3 games. So what's different with these? Well, normally the LCGs have been complete. So you have a starter set, and then there's different cycles. There used to be a cycle where you had 6 packs in a cycle. So you had a deluxe box and then 6 more packs for the cycle, and then that was that cycle, and then you had another cycle, another cycle, another cycle. And it became a nightmare to try and get some of those small packs eventually. Recently, they then changed. They did second editions of all their starter sets, because a lot of them were unbalanced. I'm not saying that they're much better now, but they're better than they were. And instead of doing cycle mini packs, they basically just did one big deluxe set with everything in it, which is brilliant. I mean, that is exactly the way it should be done. So what are they doing now? Well, apparently they're introducing something called a legacy environment concept, a current and legacy environment. And basically, the idea is that they want to make these more accessible to new players. And that kind of makes sense, because the problem with these LCGs is, yes, you can basically get as much content as you want because all 3 of these are co-op. The only problem is, though, is that it is a little bit daunting when you take a look at all my Marvel Champions stuff here. This is everything I've got for the game, right? And this isn't even every box you can get. I've just condensed it down into these boxes. But that is already a big base set. 1, 2, 3, 4 other boxes. There's at least, I think, 1 or 2 that I've got, yeah, up there actually, the other one. That's an empty box. And they're going to release another one soon. And I've got 2 hero packs here. Yeah, I got Nightcrawler and Magneto. I haven't even taken these out of their packs yet. I've literally just got them for completeness, and because these 2 are fantastic characters. I mean, let's face it, who the hell doesn't like these 2 characters in X-Men? Particularly that recent series, X-Men, what was it called? X-Men 97? Yeah, that was it. Oh, man, was that such a good series. I did not expect that to be as good as it was, but I digress. So that is already daunting for somebody who comes into the game and is like, well, where the hell do I start? Same for Arkham and same for Lord of the Rings. Now, I always say that you should just get a starter set, see how you do with that, and have fun, and maybe get the first deluxe set just to make certain that you're not put off by maybe the difficulty curve of the starter sets. But Marvel Champions still has the best starter set, I think, out of all of them. But there is the fact that there is so much content. Lord of the Rings has got a ton of content. So is Arkham Horror. In fact, I don't even buy any more content for Arkham Horror now because I just can't physically get it played. I didn't buy anything to do with Hemlock Vale, the recent one, because I've got enough content. I can go back and play all the other campaigns with different characters. Why do I need a brand new campaign? And even then, their campaigns have been a bit hit and miss lately. I mean, you know, we've had good ones like the Innsmouth one, but then we've had pretty bad ones like that Scarlet one, what was it called? The Scarlet Key or something like that. Yeah, that was a pretty bad campaign. I didn't like that one. So it is a bit hit and miss with these, but what's the point of this? So, to quote from here, essentially, starting this year, older expansion products will begin to be retired, which means that we no longer be reprinting these products, and they are no longer considered to be a part of the current environment. This practice allows us to define a more accessible current environment, which consists of the core set, any other evergreen expansions, as well as the newer expansions that have not yet been retired. In practice, this will be approximately 2 to 3 years worth of active expansions. Precise lists of what is considered will be maintained, blah, blah, blah. So the definition of a legacy environment will be any product that has ever been printed for the game as part of this environment. So all products within each game line will always be compatible with all other products from that line, which means if you have a card, you can play it in Legacy. So basically the idea is that they want to, you know, if you have all the collection like I, it's not like your collection will be defunct. It just means that it will be legacy environment for it. And honestly, if I'm playing it by myself, what do I care about current and legacy? It's not really going to even matter. And yeah, there's even a paragraph down here. These are co-op games, so why does environment matter? Set rotation is something that's been done a lot in the competitive LCGs and even TCGs to that extent. But if we stick to LCGs, Netrunner is a perfect example because Netrunner started making older stuff not valid for tournament play. I never liked the tournament play for stuff like that, but you know, so it makes sense for a competitive game. For a co-op one, they basically, you know, they give like a big example, which I'm not going to go through here entirely, about like, you know, imagine if you have a card and what does this mean and blah blah blah. So, you know, this is basically a new evolution to their formats, and honestly, I don't think it's going to really affect that many people. The only thing I would take from this, though, is that because they're going to retire older products, it means that the older sets are going to be harder to get hold of. So if you are thinking of getting into one of these games, you might want to consider grabbing the older sets now while you can, because eventually you will find it much harder, and they'll go up in price and everything. But for me, I've got all the content. I couldn't give a monkeys whether it's current or legacy or whatever. It's a co-op game. I'm just going to play it as it is. For new players, fine. If you want to stick to current environment because it means you haven't got to buy as many cards and stuff, then do that, because I think that'll work just fine. But yeah, for me, I don't think it's going to have that much of an impact at all, except for the fact of, oh, am I missing a product? Right, I better go grab it now. But I think I've got everything for these free games in terms of that. And honestly, my Lord of the Rings actually doesn't have the newest starter set because I've had that collection since the dawn of time, and I'm not going to buy the new stuff when there's no need to. So yeah, it's you know, the games are whatever they are to you, but I don't think this is really going to shake up that many people. It's mainly for retailers. It's mostly for people who don't want to buy all the content, but if you're a completionist, you might want to start mopping up some of those packs that you haven't yet. And I mean, when we're talking like the first stuff, I mean, we are talking like the first 1, maybe 2 cycles of a particular game will get the first to be retired. So it's not like it's you know, the whole lot's going to get like that. But I would certainly just have a look and check your collections and see if you want to get any more now. Decaf coffee, which is still very hot. Okay, all right, well, let's get into some of the games then. All right, so we're going to start off with fishing. That game, well, it's a boring pastime, but although I do respect fishermen and I do like eating fish. So this is a trick-taking game. Someone showed it to me at HandyCon, and it didn't look like much from the cover, and it's Freedom and Freeze. And Freedom and Freeze is very much an experimental designer, because Freedom and Freeze either makes a really cool, quirky game, or makes complete garbage. It's usually one of the two. But I give the guy props because all his games try something new. It really is like, oh, okay, this is different, you know. In fact, you know, before I talk about fishing, did he do 504? Was 504 his game? Or was that somebody else? 504, yeah. Freedom and Freeze did the whole 504 game, which was like trying to have 504 different Euro games in the same box. A fascinating concept. Execution didn't work, but give the guy props for trying something different. So I was intrigued to try this, and I love trick-taking games. This is probably one of the most interesting and possibly one of my favorite trick-taking games I've played. Now, this isn't going to be on the levels of something like Nikosu Dice, for example, which is probably my all-time favorite. And I don't know if it would be as fun for me as The Crew, but it's still really, really solid. So what you do in this game? Well, the idea is that it's, for the most part, a standard trick-taking game. Play a card, follow suit, highest wins, that sort of thing. But they come in the different, you know, the green fish are trumps, and the others are just standard suit. Bird, seahorse, octopus, crab, whatever. But here's the cool little gimmick with this one. You play this over a series of rounds, and it's most points by the end of the game. But over the course of the rounds, you have these extra cards that you can get put into the mix, which are higher values, or they do some weird effect like steal a card or something. You know, not crazy effects, but, you know, simple ones, but they exist. So, you know, you can steal a card from the trick that was just done. If somebody gets hold of this card, then they get to lead the next trick, or they lose 3 points, that kind of thing. So there's a few of these that can come into the mix. But here's the really cool thing. When you finish a round, you look at all the tricks that you've effectively won. You have a hand limit for starting the round, which goes up as the game goes on. What you do is you take all the stuff that you won in the previous round and you essentially shuffle it into a deck. It's almost kind of like a deck builder. And then you draw your new hand from the cards that you've won. So you're using the cards that you've won in previous rounds as your hands for the next few rounds. But the other thing is that you always have to draw up to your hand limit. So what if you didn't win that many tricks? Well, the card deck with all the cool cards in it is what replenishes your hand. So if you went the entire first round and didn't win a single card, so you basically got like no cards for the next round, or like maybe like a couple or something, then that hand size is replenished with really awesome cards, allowing you to kind of get an up in the next round. But it also means that if, like me, when I played this game, I did so well in the first round that for the next 4 or 5 rounds, I actually didn't have any really cool bonus cards and I had to make do with what I'd won. But I built up such a good points lead that I managed to kind of hold my own up to a point, and then it became a kind of neck and neck race. I didn't win it in the end, but, you know, I did pretty well. But it's a fascinating concept, this idea that your cards that you're interested in winning and losing tricks based on what sort of cards you're going to win, because you've got to consider not only the, you know, value of like points and winning, you know, for each round, but you've also then got to consider how good your cards are going to be in the future rounds. I mean, you could win a trick, but if it's going to get you a bunch of low crap, then do you really want to win it? You might decide to actually just tank it and let someone else have it, especially if you know that they're a bit further behind on points. You don't mind. So it really does open up the decision space in this game. Now, it's not a short game. You do play quite a lot of rounds, and, you know, maybe it could stand to be a little bit shorter as a game, but I just found this to be such an interesting idea. It's completely innovative. I can't think of a single trick-taking game that utilizes this mechanic, and if there is, please tell me, because I want to see it. But I was blown away by how interesting this game was from a mechanical standpoint. Like, how as soon as they explained that mechanic to me, my eyes lit up, you know. And it's kind of like the first time I saw that like typewriter mechanic for Civilization: A New Dawn, Ark Nova. First time I heard about that mechanic, I was just like, I'm in good hands. Oh, yeah, that is awesome. And even thematic concepts like the Anachrony loan system, which is basically a loan system, but the way they wrap it into the time travel theme just made me go, oh, yeah, I love that concept. So, Fishing is actually a game I would like to acquire. Now, sadly, I'm not sure you can get this game easily in the UK. I'll have to look. But yeah, if I see a copy of this, I am probably going to grab it because it is very cool. I want to play it some more. And, maybe with slightly less players because I think we had quite a full count last time. But I would like to have this in my trick-taking collection because I think this could be pretty high up on the list. So far, very good first impressions for Fishing. I would easily give this an 8 out of 10 as a first impression. Could it be even a 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10? That would require more plays. But, 40 to 60 minutes is not the shortest game in the world. You are playing it for a decent amount of time. But, yeah, I think we played it with a max count of 5. Yeah, so we had a max count. Perhaps it is best at 5, I don't know. But, I'd like to try it with 4, maybe 3 and see what happens. But, yeah, I was really impressed. It's got a very uninspired box, very uninspired name. But what can I say? This designer comes up with some really interesting ideas. And this one, I think he's executed very well. So, okay. Next up, Civolution. Yes, everybody's darling from last year going, this is the best game of 2024. No, it isn't by a long shot. But I have said on previous videos that I just had not played it fully. I played demo, Essen, and then people have shown me kind of half games of it, but I had not properly sat down and played a full game of it. I needed to do that. So, over the course of the last month, I have played a couple of games of this fully. Once at HandyCon and once after that. So, I have now sat and played through the full experience of Civolution from a 4-player multiplayer perspective. I actually stand that I think this game probably is more suited to solo, and I think if I was to grab it, I probably would only play it solo. But, I am going to say my first impressions now after properly enjoying 2 games of it. And I am saying enjoy. Because overall, I do like it, ? It's got a lot of stuff that I do like. And the main stuff I like is the sandboxy nature of what you can do. You have a lot of these technologies. Now, some of these are pretty poor technologies that you would never really touch often. But, trying to get off, these pictures of what on earth. Yeah, I know what the box cover looks like, moron. Show me some pictures of the actual game. Yeah, so your board has got a lot of these technologies that you can use. You've got different events every game. The scoring conditions are going to be different. The map layout's going to be different in terms of the landmarks. The cards are going to be different every game. So there's a lot of variety here. And I like the fact that you can kind of adapt to what sort of stuff comes up, even though you technically should have some kind of strategy from the get-go because of the way you score in each round. Like, this round I score a lot for genetic markers, future round I'm going to score for population, and, there's aspects like that. But, overall, the amount of options that I had and creating my board, layering the cards, playing the cards with different effects and upgrading technologies and stuff, I enjoyed all of that aspect. That stuff is cool. And if that's the main thing you're getting from the game, I can see why it would be a particular favorite for a lot of people. It is quite an infectious thing to do that. And it does allow you to progress and gain victory points and follow your own path to victory in many ways, including these tracks here, the technology tracks, leveling up these will get you different bonuses and such. But there are still some problems I have with this game that do put me off to a point. Firstly, the use of dice in the first place. Now, I know a lot of defenders of this game are going to say, it doesn't matter, you've got loads of luck mitigation. You have luck mitigation, yes, but it's not going to get you out of every problem. And the problem with luck mitigation in incredibly long Euro games like this, this is easily a 3 to 4 hour Euro game with 4 players. Possibly even longer than 4 hours if you're trying to learn it for the first time. This is a friggin' long game, okay? I can finish Ark Nova 4 players in less time than this takes. And when you have luck in a game like that, the length of the game compounds the problem of having luck in a game with dice. Now, you can mitigate it, yes. You have focus markers that can turn the die into whatever value you like, and you have ideas which can augment the value. But you only have so many of them, and there aren't that many actions in the game. So if you are wasting actions to sort out mitigation, then if somebody else is able to not have to do that, they are doing better than you as a result by default. That is what luck does to a long Euro. And if I go through the game with barely any ideas or focus, and yet I'm rolling exactly what I need, I'm doing better because I didn't have to waste time mitigating. So there is some in the game, but it's not enough to justify it for that length. I still think this game should have done something other than dice, especially when, there are games like the Garfield games lineup, Wayfarers and Scholars and Tiger and Inventors. They use dice, yes, but those games are not 4-hour monstrosities. And also, yes, you do roll dice and it has an effect, but I've yet to have a situation where in those games my whole game has been shot because of it. There's usually enough mitigation or enough stuff you can do with the dice to get around those problems. But yeah, it can still affect those games. It's not entirely devoid of that negative flaw, but because they're shorter games, because they're not quite as involved and critical as this one, you really do need to plan out what you're doing in terms of your turns. If you don't have the dice to do that, then your turns are going to be mostly a waste of time. You can't do, I was like, I guess I'll just draw some cards then because I can't do the production like I need to. Well, yeah, I don't gain anything from that. So it feels, it doesn't feel good. But that's not the only bit of luck in this game that's a problem. You've got the tiles themselves on here, these landmarks. Some of them have negative effects that affect you when you're next door to them. To have that flip up when you've spent most of your time trying to get from A to B and then all of a sudden to find that they're god-awful landmarks, how's that supposed to feel to you? That's a horrible thing to have in a game. And then you might have... And then the other thing is these gold tiles. I didn't win the second game. I won the first game of Civolution when I was being taught this by Dylan at HandyCon. And I did it by just getting a bunch of these gold tiles and achieving them. But the gold tiles come out randomly. So you may have the gold tiles sort of adhere to what it is you're doing, and they might be completely unrelated. But then there's also the fact that somebody might just have the perfect gold tile turn up for them when it turns up, because they turn up randomly. And turn order might be, well, oh great, I couldn't get that gold tile. That would have been great for me, but it turned up and you were first, so therefore you get it. And, those come out randomly. The land tiles are random. The dice are random. The cards are random. You can draw cards from the decks and have a look and see if there are any good ones, but, again, that's random, so you may get bad stuff, and there just isn't enough actions in the 4 hours you play this game for to mitigate problems where you have that sense. So, I like the production sort of. Everything's condensed in a box, and you've got dice. The cards are cool. The icon. I'll give props for something. The graphic design in this game is fantastic. I think for the game as complex as it is, yes, it's got a 40-page rulebook, but I gotta say, the rulebook itself, and particularly the graphic design on a lot of these boards, is stellar. It really is really good. There's a lot of stuff that to a heavy gamer will make sense just by looking at it. So, it makes the game a lot more accessible than it could be for something as complex as this. But, so where do I stand with it? Well, I feel like if I was playing a solo, some of those luck aspects would mitigate themselves. Would offset themselves because it'd be a shorter affair. But this game is pretty much multiplayer solitaire. What I'm doing on my board has no effect on anybody else's board. The only time I care about the other players is, going up tracks and taking gold tiles, or occasionally you can kick someone out of a spot and it costs more to feed their person. Again, you've got take that mechanics in a 4-hour game. Why? Why do that? That doesn't make any sense. But, other than that, other than a little bit of shoving on the map, there's not really a lot of player interaction in this, so having this with 4 players isn't worth it. Even playing this 2-player isn't really worth it. I totally see that maybe down the line I would like to grab a copy of this, play it solo, and see if it's a game I would like more as a solo game. But as a multiplayer game, I think it's one that I'd be like, yeah, I'll play it because there's a lot to enjoy. but I'm going to have to accept that's going to be the evening game, and it's going to take a while. There's going to be quite a bit of downtime. Do I really want to? And, I'm going to be making that consideration every time. But I do see its merits. I do see that there's a lot of stuff that works in this game. It doesn't feel like a Stefan Feld game. Yes, it's, I have a big problem with a lot of Stefan Feld games, but this doesn't feel like a Feld. This is very different. Maybe he's trying to finally branch out from his shtick of those city games, those horrible, bland, beige ones. But I'm definitely down if this is more his shtick. But people crying that this is like a nearly flawless game and this is the best game of 2024, I think are seriously downplaying the luck problem in this. And they don't care about the fact that it's multiplayer solitaire because they use the excuse of, I'm there having fun with my friends while I play this. Yeah, therefore it's fine. It's like, you can do that with any game in existence, you moron. That doesn't make the game interactive or justified to be 4 players. You could just play it by yourself if it's going to be like that. But if you're going to use that excuse for every single game, then why is multiplayer interaction even a thing? So, that doesn't work. But I can see why people are liking this. I'm just not seeing Game of the Year 24 best game ever or whatever. I think that's stretching it quite far. There are some negatives to this game that you cannot overlook, and justify it as best game ever. I mean, I don't think any game is flawless. Ark Nova is now I made that my number 1 on my last year's top 100. Ark Nova is not a flawless game. It has problems, but the pros outweigh the cons. I think you've got a lot of outweighing to do on this one, but, different strokes for different folks. I like it. I would probably give it a 6 out of 10. I'd say it's above average. There's a lot of stuff I enjoy in this game, but there's stuff that irk me, and those two things kind of offset each other. But I would like to try it solo. I'd like to give this a game solo and see if a lot of those problems go away. So, I don't think it's terrible. I do not think this is terrible at all, but it is a bit of a mammoth undertaking, so it definitely has that issue. Okay. More drink, gotta watch my throat. Alright, next up, Faraway. This won't take very long to talk about. So, Faraway is a game that everybody kept banging on at me to try. When I did my Castle combo review, everyone was like, have you played Faraway? Have you played Faraway? Have you played Faraway? Yes, I finally have now, guys. Get off my back. But the problem was, at Essen, they sold the expansion. They didn't have the base games. That didn't help. And nowhere in the UK could I find the base game of this. I was just like, where the hell do I buy this then? So finally, at HandyCon, I actually nicked it from the catch-up game store. And I don't mean I stole it. What I mean is that I borrowed it to play it. They were basically demoing a bunch of these games, but I think they'd finished for the day and they just left the games on the table. And I thought, well, we need something to tie us over for less than an hour. I've been meaning to try this one out. I think someone taught me the game. Yeah, someone taught me the game the night before. And then with some mates, I grabbed it off the table, taught it to them, and then returned the game. So yes, I haven't got it, but you know what I mean. I borrowed it temporarily. But this game is an interesting, quirky little card game. I think 15 to 30 minutes is a little bit optimistic in terms of play time. You're probably more talking 45 minutes, but it's not a long affair. But it's quite an interesting little game. You basically build up a tableau of 8 cards in front of you, and they've got different symbols and scoring conditions like most card games. But the interesting thing is that during the game, you build your row from left to right, and the number, whether it's higher or lower, dictates whether you get to draw from a deck of little cards that give you more symbols, maybe more scoring, more colors, whatever, so cool extra stuff. But you can only do that for so long. Eventually, you are going to want to play a card with a lower number and so forth. It also has an effect on turn order for picking the cards on the next round. But what happens is when you get to the end of the 8 cards that you do throughout the game, you then flip them all over and then from the end, work your way back and score based on what you can see as you go back through your journey. Again, this is another one of those times when my eyes lit up from a mechanic which I thought, this is different, this is pretty cool. You build up a system through the day, worrying about turn order and what you're scoring for, but then being mindful that when you walk back, you're only going to see so much at each stage. That is really, really cool. And the artwork is quite cool. It's a weird style, but yeah, it's got some weird stuff on it, like some quirky stuff on it, but it does look nice and colorful. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I thought this was a solid card game. I don't think it's like blow my mind out of the water amazing, but I think it's a solid one. And if I can get a copy of this at some point and try the expansion, I would actually like to do so, because I think there's a lot of people I know that would get into this game. You can certainly write yourself into a corner and score pretty badly if you are not paying attention to what you do, but yeah, I mean, I tried 2 different strategies. First time I just went mad on map symbols and drew a bucket load of those extra cards. Second game I decided to ignore maps entirely and worry about colors. They were 2 very different games and I had to gamble a little bit in the second one. Otherwise I wouldn't have won it. But yeah, it's a cool game. It's different. It's not too difficult to understand. There's a couple of little rules with the graphic design that you kind of have to double check, but this one was pretty solid. I enjoyed both games. They take about 45 minutes, I'd say, to play the whole game. I think 15 minutes. 15 minutes if you play this with 2 of you and you go at rocket speed, maybe, but come on. Now, you're looking more at 45 minutes and you've got a pretty decent, short game. You could get it down to 30 with 4 players who played the game before or something, but 6 players, 30 minutes, yeah, good luck with that. I mean, it says best 2 to 3. You don't actually gain that much from having more players. In fact, honestly, it actually just makes the game more chaotic because you have more cards to pick from in the middle, but if you're going last in 6 players, then you basically might as well not even stare at the cards because you've got no idea what's going to come up before your turn. It definitely does feel like a game that's best suited at 2 to 3. Although I played it with 4 and I found that pretty good as well. So I think as a 2 to 4 player game, this game has decent merits. I don't think I would like it as much at 5 and 6. I think that'd be too chaotic. So yeah, I was very, very, very intrigued by this. People had banged on about it for ages, and I was impressed. I'd give it a solid 7, possibly an 8 as a first impression, but yeah, I would like to grab a copy of this game and play it some more and try the expansion, see if that elevates it a little bit more. But yeah, thanks for the recommendation, guys. This one, Faraway, was pretty good. The drink. All right, so we've had 3 so far. I got another 3 on my list. This one. The Vulgari Eloquentia. I think that's what it's called. It's a beige euro, and oh my friggin' word, this is a beige euro. This is like the ultimate beige, as I call it. A friend of mine really likes beige euros. So, the more beigeier, the better. We do agree on some games, but beige euros is not one of them. But I actually said, look, I've heard you play this game a lot with some people. You want to play it more often. I'm always willing to try any game once. You know what? Show me what you like about this game. I actually said, yeah, I'll try any game once. Now, sometimes they show me a game like Hybris. He's got that from Kickstarter, and I thought, I'll try it. It doesn't sound like something I'd go mad for, but I'll try it. And I actually quite enjoyed Hybris. Then he also showed me Imperial Steam, which is one of my most hated games ever. So yeah, it doesn't always work out. This one I requested to see just how beige can you get. Oh my word, can you get beige? You can get more beige. I mean, this is the deluxe set. Right, he has the deluxe set. And by deluxe, you've got a few half-decent metal coins, and that's about it. Oh yeah, and a few wooden meeples. Other than that, though, I don't know what the hell in this game is meant to be deluxe, because it looks like a very standard game. Standard art, standard tokens, standard wooden discs. Yeah, I mean, what? A horse meeple and a couple of Pope and Cardinal meeples and some metal coins is your idea of deluxe? Yeah, I think that's a little misleading. But what do you do in this game? Well, it's kind of hard to explain. It's kind of like a mini sandbox. I mean, the theme means nothing to me. The theme is whatever. I mean, I'll read you this tagline. Collect manuscripts and gain power to help form the Italian language. If that sounds boring to you, then stay away from this game. Because honestly, by the end of this game, I'd actually forgotten what the theme was. It really doesn't make a lot of difference. Not to say this game is devoid of theme. There's certainly references to actual history that do make sense if you are aware of the history, and they do use a lot of terminology for various actions based on historical fact. Annoyingly, for someone like me who's not interested in this element of history or doesn't know anything about what an abbess is or what the difference between a cardinal and a pope and all these other like random bits of Latin that don't make any sense to me, then well, it just makes the game harder to learn. So that is a bit of an annoyance. But this is basically, what you have to do. So players have to do their part in the creation in this new language. Who will provide them with the proper knowledge here? Whatever. Okay. So this is their thematic spiel. 2 paragraphs out of, on their spiel out of the 3 is all about the theme, which you will forget within 5 minutes. But here you go. So players gain VP from reading manuscripts, getting tokens basically, and looking for important documents like the Canticle of the Sun or Riddle from Viona. That basically means level up tracks. You can improve your social status. For example, if the merchant becomes a banker, or the friar becomes a Benedict monk, or the cardinal becomes pope, you get more VP. That literally is trading in tokens at the end of the game to get points, right? Moreover, VP can be gotten with money, have the most money at the end of the game, and with the support of politicians, nobleness, and whatever, abbacisses and the annulisses. Honestly, I cannot even pronounce most of these words. Politicians, noblemen, abbesses, which as far as I'm aware is a nun. I can't remember. It's like a type of nun. And the amanuensis. Amanuansis. I don't even remember that in the game. What the hell is one of those? I need to do a quick little Google search. What is that? A literary or artistic assistant, in particular one who takes dictation or copies manuscripts. What's another word for amulus? Shorthand typist, stenographer, secretarial assistant, secretary. God. Does anyone remember? Oh, what's the comedian's name? I forget which comedian did it, but basically he had this whole sketch on one of his live stand-ups where he talks to the audience, and whatever job description they give him, he basically finds a way to tie it back to secretary. So he's the one who always drinks on stage. Damn it, I forgot his name, but that was always quite funny to me. And yeah, that just sounds like a glorified secretary. But okay, so I'm struggling to explain it from a thematic standpoint because this isn't my theme. But look at this board. You've got cubes, you've got a pointless round marker, you've got these little tokens, a couple of meeples. I mean, this is obviously a setup, you know, hasn't started yet, and pretty mediocre art. Yeah, this is a beige Euro. But what you're doing in this game is kind of whatever you kind of feel like, because it really doesn't hold your hand. This thing expects you to just do stuff and eventually get points and figure it out yourself. Now, I got a feeling I might need to go to the original game because I'm not going to get any good pictures otherwise. So we'll start showing the retail version now. There we go, overview of the board, 4-player. This looks pretty good. Yeah, there we go. So it looks a little different, but it's pretty much the same game. They've just, reorganized the board a bit. But the idea is you could decide to move around the map and collect manuscript tokens. You should definitely do that because they're worth the most points in the game. But action points. It's an action points and you spread them out however you feel like, and different things cost different action points. Thankfully, the most you can have is 6, so it doesn't end up as one of those situations where, oh my god, I've got to wait for this person to hurry up and figure out what to do with 12 action points. It's not as bad as that. But yeah, you have event tiles that come out each round. The event tile is literally just a tile with a reward on. If you go to that location, you get the tile. Whatever. The event means nothing. And pretty much all you're doing is leveling up tracks. There's a bunch of these tracks for the different actions where you put your little discs, and those tracks are what are scoring you VP, basically. So you've got one track that allows you to get more of those manuscript tokens. You've got one track that allows you to score more heavily for visiting ports in the game. You've got a track that is literally just, if you're ahead on this track by the end of the game, you get 6, second most gets this or whatever. I mean, they are as boring as they sound for what tracks do. And it may sound like I really hate this game. I can't really say I hate it, but I can't say I like it either. The problem is that this game is so beige, like so beige, that it doesn't even elicit an emotional response. I mean, you can decide if you want to be a merchant, you can upgrade to a cardinal, and then eventually to a pope, or something like that. And, when you get one of these tiles, you get money, you get like cubes or something, and then you get some special benefit at the bottom, but you can choose to remain as a merchant for the whole game, which is what I did because I'm an atheist. I don't really go for religion, so therefore I decided I was going to stay as a merchant. Everybody else, pretty much as fast as they could, turned into the religious people, so I was a bit worried that I'd made a mistake. Now, I didn't win the game when I played it, but I tied for first place. I don't know how the hell I tied for first place, because I didn't really know what I was doing, but I just decided, fine, I'm a merchant, I'm going to go visit all the ports, I'll level up that track, get a bunch of money, and now do it. The thing is, it's pretty boring, because all you do as the merchant is just walk around and visit spots and get some manuscript tiles. That's it. You don't really pay attention to half the other stuff in the game, and it's kind of weird. I get that this probably makes sense thematically, but in the gameplay mechanic, it's annoying. When you are a merchant, you have to give charity to the religious players. So the religious players don't get money from spaces on the map, so their money income is harder to acquire. But the richest merchants have to give money to the religious lot. So as the only merchant, I'm constantly having to give my money away to them. But that's annoying, because as a merchant, I'm incentivized to get more money. But if I get more money, I just end up paying it out to them. That doesn't feel fun. It may be thematic, I guess, but for crying out loud, didn't merchants hide money? Didn't they, like, try to stifle off the tax man or something back in those days? I don't know. But it just felt annoying that I'm told I should get money only just so that I could lose it. It's like, that doesn't seem fun or fair. But, you know, suffice to say, I did tie for second place. So I did very well on the merchant stuff. Tied for second. The only reason I didn't win is because I was slightly behind the other player on the knowledge track. It was the tiebreaker. But, yeah, the knowledge track's a bit weird. It's basically a track around the edge of the board, and the higher you're up on knowledge, the more turn order is dictated, but also the manuscript's availability is different. But in order to get really high up on that track takes a lot of effort, and it just doesn't seem worth it. And you get to a point where you've reached high enough on the track that is decent enough for what you need to do, and getting any more knowledge, unless you're going to go to the next bracket, isn't worth getting more knowledge. It really doesn't make much of a difference. I mean, yes, I know I lost by a tiebreaker, but you've got no idea you're going to tie at the end of the game. I mean, that was an unheard of precedent for them. So, you know, it's not something that's going to be a regular thing. But it's just this game just didn't really do anything for me. I couldn't say I hate it, because the game only takes about 2 hours, 2 and a bit hours after the teach. It's not that long a game with 4 players. Bear in mind, 2 of us had not played it before. And one had to relearn it in order to teach it, and even then it was kind of a little all over the place. But yeah, it's not too long a game. It just looks very bland. It's not deluxe in any way, shape, or form, apart from metal coins, and even then there's only so many of them. It's beige. It's beige mechanics. It pretty much is just move a pawn around a map and level up a bunch of tracks, collect a few tokens, set collection. That is literally it. So none of the mechanics I would say are fun. They're not terrible, they're just not exciting. You know, there is no excitement in this game. This game just doesn't generate an emotional response. It is the pinnacle of bland. It's at most an average game, maybe below average, because it's just, I don't really want to play this again, so I'm not incentivized to. You know, there's nothing to draw me in from the theme. There's no mechanic to make me go, oh yeah, that mechanic's really cool. It's beige for beige's sake. It's got a title that most of the time I can't even pronounce properly, and try searching for it online. It's a pain in the butt. You know, always the way when these designers and publishers name their games after Latin words. But yeah, it's got a bit of a headache. Sorry, let me take another drink. Getting to that stage. But yeah, it's okay. It's harmless. You know, there's not enough people that love it to bits. It's a niche group of gamers are going to like this game, and if they do, fair play. It's not like this is the most popular game out there. It's not overrated. It's not particularly underrated either. It just exists. Some people are going to like it. Many aren't going to care about it or even go near it. I wouldn't have gone near this if I wasn't curious. I've tried it, and I was happy to try it. I at least got something out of it, but yeah, I couldn't see myself wanting to play this again. It did what it did. It is what it is. It's just meh. It's bland. It's an emotionless beige Euro, but it's not a bad one. It's not a hateful one. It's not a terrible one or anything like that. It's just, it exists, and that's about as much as you can say about it. But I'm glad I tried it. But it's definitely for the beige Euro one, so maybe I should introduce this to chairman of the board. Okay, right. Let's see, 2 more. These are relatively quick, so hopefully my throat will last. The Gang. So at HandyCon, it was late at night. I was seeing if anybody else was still around to play, and I came across people playing this at 5 players, so I jumped in for 6 players. It says best with 5. I think, yeah, it probably is best with 5, probably best with 4, maybe. I don't think this works for 3, and I think at 6 it's a bit too tricky. But this is a game that I missed out on last year. And as far as I'm aware, I think Shut Up and Sit Down might have said this is one of their favourite games of the year or something. I don't know, but I don't watch their stuff. I don't care about Shut Up and Sit Down. I am fed up with this whole Shut Up and Sit Down effect, which is every time they say a game is great, everybody then has to go and buy it because apparently what they say is gospel. But, that gets my wick. But I'd never heard of this game before that night, so I came in with a clean sheet. Cosmos game, The Gang, is basically a cooperative Texas Hold'em poker game. Now, I like co-ops, I like quirky card games, and I love Texas Hold'em poker. I haven't played it in a while, but used to play at local pub for pub money and stuff like that. So I really do like Texas Hold'em poker. But this one, I thought, how the hell do you make it co-op? How does this work? Well, the idea is that basically you have a deck of cards that functions pretty much like a normal deck of cards. In fact, the artwork is quite, it's quite a nice little set of cards. But what you're doing is that you can't communicate with other players, although we were kind of stretching that rule where we couldn't say directly what we had, but we could talk, we could trash talk, we could say our uncertainties, that kind of thing. So it's hard to win this at 5 or 6 players, guys. It's not an easy game to win. So, compared to lower player counts, so we were taking a few liberties in the interest of having fun. So I've not really played this as the rules intended yet. But the idea is that you've got these chips over the course of 4 rounds. The main course of a Texas Hold'em poker game. So you have your initial 2 cards, you then have the river, you then have the turn, and then you have the flop, then you have the turn, and then you have the river. Get it right. So effectively 4 separate rounds, like a normal Texas Hold'em poker game. But in each round, you have these chips. And these chips, which I swear, when we got to the orange ones, everybody made the comment that they look like Dragon Balls, because you cannot unsee that. But you take a chip based on how powerful you think your winning hand is compared to the other players. So you might, on the flop, find that you've got 2 pair. That could be pretty powerful compared to other players. But you're constantly exchanging the tokens around without being able to directly say that your hand is this. So you kind of have to sort of gauge from players' reactions, like, is my is my hand of 2 pair great? I mean, somebody could be getting a flush here, and they seem pretty confident. Maybe they've got the flush. In which case my 2 pair is going to be better than most, but not as good. And then you realize that your 2 pair could be beaten by a different 2 pair. Has somebody got that 2 pair? Is somebody got complete garbage? And as you go through the round, you can see whether people started thinking pretty confidently or thought their hand was garbage. And it generates a lot of fun banter and a lot of cool thinking. Now, it does require you to have some knowledge of Texas Hold'em poker. Not just what the winning hands are, but also kind of how Texas Hold'em poker works, from how powerful a potential hand can be. So if you are completely new to Texas Hold'em poker, I think you're going to get a little lost on this game. For me, who has played Texas Hold'em poker a lot in competitive play as well, like casino tournaments, that kind of thing, I know a bit more about this game, so I gravitated to this one quite a lot. But I enjoyed this. We didn't play technically as the rules intended, but it was fun despite that. Now, would the game be as fun if we played it exactly as the rules intended, where you're in silence, a bit like The Mind? That remains to be seen, but it's enough that I would like to grab a copy of this and give it more tries. Unfortunately, it's pretty hard to find a copy of it, so I'm sure it will reprint, I'm sure it will come back into stock somewhere. At some stage, I will grab this, but so far, I'm intrigued. 7 out of 10 to begin with. I mean, again, we didn't really play it properly, so to give it a rating doesn't really make sense. Let's give it a 7 for now and say it's a good game, but I definitely want to try it some more. I enjoyed the games we played. We played several of them, and yeah, I as someone like me who likes games where you get into the head of other players, but loves Texas Hold'em poker, because I didn't like The Mind. Right, The Mind is a terrible game for me, but then The Mind literally gives you nothing to go on. You have a card, could it be higher or lower? You have no clue whatsoever. There is nothing in the game to give you any kind of indication that you are higher or lower, so what is the point? But in The Gang, there is a point, because with this one, if you understand how Texas poker works, if you understand how powerful your initial 2 cards can be and are for how Texas Hold'em poker evolves, then you have something to go on. You have information you can use. Yes, you are kind of making educated guesses, but I have a reason to think that. Not just, I will guess randomly and see what happens. So this one definitely is elevated above stuff like that. I want to try it more. I just need to find a copy. But yeah, really cool, interesting design. Really cool, interesting design. Right. Finally, because my throat is starting to go, we shall deal with Cities. Cities. This is a Devier game. Now, Devier games, sadly, at best, have given me 7 out of 10 games. They occasionally make a couple of good ones, but even then, a lot of their games are either bad or forgettable. And the problem is Devier just puts out too many games. They fall into this problem where so many games come out that none of them are belters. They're all just meh or half decent. White Castle's probably my best one of theirs. I can't think of any others that match up to White Castle, and even then White Castle I've kind of got on board with because there's no variety in the game. So that one's probably dropped to a 6 out of 10 by now. But this one I was intrigued by because it sounded simple. It's Phil Walker Harding, so a good designer for simple games. Steve Finn as well. And this was meant to be a kind of, not quite city building, but a tile laying game where you put the tiles out and put buildings on them, different color buildings, build parks, build lakes, that kind of thing. So I like those sort of games. And you try to match up to objectives and get victory points. Hang on, take another drink. Really are struggling a little bit here, guys. Sorry, but I will try to get through this one. So, with this one, you have a turn selection system where you've got 4 rows. One for objective cards. If you hear somebody knocking outside on it with tools outside, I do apologize. But you've got objective cards, you've got the land tiles, you've got decor tiles, and you've got the buildings themselves. And what you do is, in turn order, you take it in turns to place one of your meeples out on the board in one of the rows to take what you want. Now, the idea is that if you're first in turn order and you go to a particular spot first, you get your pick of what it is you want out of that row. But the longer you leave it, the less choice you have later. Eventually, you're going to get one of the 4 choices on all of the rows, or I don't know how it works with less players, but this is for a 4-player, for example. I think you just lay out less tiles. But, you might only get the last thing that's there if you wait too long. Are you cool with that? Or do you really want to go there early and make sure you get the critical thing that you need, knowing that you're going to suffer on something else? Good little bit of turn angst there. Turns are very quick. The last turn of the round is automatic, so you don't even have to wait for turn order for that. But it creates a good amount of turn angst. And then what you do is that you build up your little map thing in front of you, plunk your buildings down, stack them, Manhattan style, that kind of thing. And you try to score points by the layout of your park, the decor tokens, the objective cards you build, all of that stuff. So it's a pretty simple game. It says 45 minutes. That's pretty accurate. I don't think the game took longer than 45 minutes when we played it. And I actually think this is Devier Games' best game. I honestly do. I think this is better than White Castle. I think this is better than, I've not played Hard Rock Circus or whatever it's, Hard Rock 1970. What's that Rockstar one? I forget, but I haven't played that yet. But I don't know if I would like it or not. I would certainly like to try it. But I have played most of Devier Games' other stuff. I couldn't care less about Daitoshi. I didn't like Free Ring Circus at all. I'm trying to think what else they've done. They've done so many. That is the problem. Devier Games have just made so many games that it just doesn't, they just blend together, really. But I think Cities was pretty solid. I mean, the scores were, quite tight. I think I won it at the end of the day. I can't recall. I think I did win it, but it wasn't by much. But you've got the cool aspect of building the city in front of you. Yeah, it doesn't look that much like a city. It's a bunch of pieces and tiles, but you have to take what you can for a 45-minute game. But the turn angsty bit with this board, this decision space, I thought was really cool. There's a little luck aspect with stuff coming out that you may not necessarily want in that, but I think that with turn order being so important and the angst decisions with this, I think this is a pretty neat 45-minute game. So I would definitely give this at least a 7 out of 10, possibly an 8. For now, I thought it was a good experience. I was glad to try it, and I think this is going to be one of the better ones from Phil Walker Harding. Now, to go from Devier Games, so that I can illustrate my point a bit more. So what have they got? So, the problem is Devier Games they've co-published a bunch of stuff. So I've got to find the stuff that's just them. So what have we got? Free Ring Circus, meh, not particular fan of. What else is purely Devier? The Adventures of Robin Hood, I thought that was a Cosmos game. That's a Cosmos game. The problem is, yeah, they've co-produced a bunch of stuff. There's no way that I can look through. Maybe if I look through Devir Games as a publisher. Yeah, okay, here we go. So there we go. Right, so this is better. So we'll go to their actual website. Yokai Sketch, not played. I mean, and the thing is, I've not played all of their games. I mean, for crying out loud, look how many they've done. They've done so many, but I mean, have you heard of most of these games? So what have we got? Jerusalem, wasn't as big a fan of that one. Bamboo, decent, but quite time-consuming, quite fiddly. Difficult to teach new players and that. So Bamboo was decent and also quite expensive, what it is, and you have to really Tetris it into the box at the end of the day. So it had problems. Batoku, not a fan. I did a full review of this, so you can check out my full thoughts. But it's an average game. The theme is completely wasted. It's a 3-hour point salad with nothing particularly that innovative in it. And yeah, it exists. Red Cathedral, decent-ish, but the problem is that it takes too long for what it is. And there's so much analysis paralysis in this game. It's ridiculous because of the way the dice work. So that put me off. Millefiori, not played. I haven't really heard much about it. Anyway, I mean, that is technically Devir Games. I was thinking it was more a Schmidt game. Never heard of the Color Monster. Paris, meh, wasn't that blown away by it. I mean, I'll say a lot of these games I've not played, but I mean, has anybody heard of Veggies or Winter or Walkie Talkie? I mean, I don't know what most of these games are. Mazescape, meh. I mean, it's just another one of those games like the escape room stuff and that you can buy. You know, they're not groundbreaking. Polis, I see this on Bring and Buys and secondhand sales all the time, so clearly this wasn't a popular one. Silk, not meh. It was a meh game. I don't think Codenames is anything for this. They can't take credit for that one. Care, always see this on discount sales and stuff like that. Lavina, fine. Half decent game, but again, just kind of above average meh. And yeah, I mean, look at this. There's more as well. They make a lot of stuff. You know, give it credit. They make a lot of games. And although some of these are not theirs. But Sultan on Sea, not played. It looks so boring, though. I don't have a means to want to do this. I'd like to try Rock Hard 1977. I don't want to go near Daitoshi. Plantanubo was a nice looking game, but again, it just felt like a pure mechanical game. A lot of downtime potential. It was fine, but I wasn't blown away by it. And this is the thing. A lot of their games just simply don't blow me away. The problem is that they just make too many and don't focus on developing individual ones to be bangers. You know, because people like Czech Game Editions, you know, don't put out that many games, but they put out bangers. They put out absolute belters because they focus on these games. When you try to spread yourself too thinly, you just end up you try to please everybody and then you please no one. And for me, I don't get pleased by their games long enough. You know, Cities is probably one of the best games I played from them. And even then, it's a decent 45-minute filler in that. It's not blowing my mind, but I still think it's probably the best one I've played from them so far. So it's, you know, I just think they need to condense themselves a little bit more and not try to make a game for everybody every 5 seconds. But anyway, 1 hour and 7 minutes. This is a long podcast. I noticed it blipped a little bit with the Wi-Fi at one point, so I'll have to sort that out. But yeah, that's a bunch of games that I've played. So, you know, lots of first impressions there. I'd like to know your thoughts in the comments. Do you like these games? Do you hate them? Do you agree or disagree? I'm pretty sure loads of people will disagree on Civolution and think it's the best game since sliced bread, but come on, you gotta see where I'm coming from. You know, those flaws that I mentioned might not be flaws for you, fine, but don't disregard that they exist. They exist, okay? You just might not be bothered by them as much, which is fine. If they don't bother you, then they don't bother you. But you know, you can't say they don't exist because they do. But yeah, the other games I'd be very interested to hear thoughts on. So Faraway, what's the expansion like? What do people think about Devir games in general and Cities? You know, do we have a bunch of Vulgari Eloquentia, whatever fans here? I'd be interested to know. So by all means, let me know your thoughts in the comments. But until next time, I'll see you on the next podcast episode. I'm going to go and rest my throat now and sort out this headache. A couple of paracetamol, I'll be fine. I might go to the gym later. That always de-stresses a headache. So sit on a treadmill for a bit. No, sit on the treadmill? That's a pretty bad way to do it. You know what I mean. Sit on a cross trainer or do some weightlifting. That usually helps. But also I need to check whether that video is rendered. Fingers crossed, okay? Fingers crossed. See you on the next episode of the Broken Meeple. Remember, it's only a game. Take care, and bye for now.